design session we have in this course about international project management for first-time project management and project managers. So welcome to the design part 2. We will talk about and continue on what Luca already said before. So I will continue with the parts of impact and outputs and results and what is all that and what has that to do with international project management. So before that, I would like to say something in general about the design of a project in international cooperation. As I see it, this design phase, this design part is quite important because all other parts are somehow linked to this one. So if you think about the implementation, for sure you need the design before, but also if you think about evaluation, you will refer very much to what you have designed. So this here is quite an important step. Also, when you think about application phase, it's not possible without designing. So, but it's probably underestimated. So we will see when we come to some parts here. Often it's not thought about. When we talk about international cooperation and projects in this European or international context, then the design phase is not something you normally do just alone. So it is better that already in this phase you have contacts to possible partners, or if there is already the partnership, to design it together somehow, co-creative if best. That depends on the possibilities and for sure also on the resources, but as we can see it's quite important that already at this stage you involve partners and not later on when the project starts and to say, okay, I have this project, just come and do it. But already here have discussions, have to think about what is good in each context of each partner to do and so on. So that's just as a general idea. So I will just give a short overview on what is happening. As I said before, I will continue on what Luca said. So we will talk about outcome, impact, output, but also about input and activities and what is all that. And then to think about how we can measure our results. So therefore we need indicators. So this is the next, the second step then. Concerning the question of influences on your project, this is also something you have to consider already in this design phase. So that would be the second bigger chapter we will talk about in the next 45 minutes. So, how to measure project results? To make it clear, we are not talking about monitoring and evaluation at this moment. But as I said before, the designing is very much connected to this part later then. So I will give the steps you will need for the designing, but not for the evaluation and the monitoring. We often use this kind of tool or method to define our impacts, outcomes, outputs, and so on for the projects. And this tool is called theory of change, which in my view very well describes the project logic and what you want to reach and how to reach it. this is for sure, this is a method you can use in all projects. It's not only about international ones, but it's interesting that this tool was, you can say, firstly implemented in the international cooperation sector, especially in the field of working together with other countries to support, for example, also civil society in these other countries. So it's nowadays often used in this civil society context and used by social entrepreneurs and so on. This idea or approach suggests to have first the definition of an impact. As Luca said already, this is the greater good you are seeking to reach, perhaps the hope you have for society, or a bit more pragmatic, what you can contribute to with your project or even with your organization. So this is also something you can use not only for one project, but you can use it for your whole organization. That could be interesting for the management body members also. The impact is defined as something long-term or indirect, and it is normally hard to measure. So this is the part difficult to measure, especially if you don't have much resources to do that. In a smaller project, I would not suggest to try to measure it, but to define it in this design phase for sure, because everything else depends on that. The next level is the outcome. So this is a bit more concrete, and these are the changes you can reach with your project implementation. But these are greater changes in systems, in relations. So we will see, I give you an example later on, then you can probably better understand. These outcomes you can achieve by your outputs you have. And the outputs are more reached immediately after you did an activity, for example. Yeah? So this is something probably more clear for you when you have the next level, the activities. It's just what you do, the measures, your training you're doing in this project or something else. And the output is something directly connected to the activity. And the input for sure is also important. Luca told about the budget. So the input are all material and non-material resources you need to implement your activities and so on, then finally come hopefully to the impact intended. So we have the example, then probably it becomes clearer. We start again at the impact level. This is an example we could say for this own project we are doing. So it's could be our greater intention to improve the quality of work of CSOs in the sector of adult education, lifelong learning, and so on, by learning in international environments. But so the impact we intend to reach is this quality improvement, you can say. What we have to reach by our project then is, for example, the outcome to have a more international cooperation in the sector. So if CSOs want to learn by each other from different countries, then we need international cooperation. So this is what we achieve, what we want to achieve to reach. Another outcome could be to have greater successes in implementing international projects, so that they are successful. So this is also a quality part, you can say. How to reach these outcomes? For that, we do intend to have certain outputs, as, for example, to have new networks created, new corporations initiated, or on the other hand, raise knowledge and skills of project managers and organizations. So with these outputs, you can probably see very well we can reach our outcomes then. And these outputs, how can we come to them? By our activities, for sure. So networking events can for sure contribute to the creation of new networks or corporations. The trainings could contribute to raise knowledge and skills of the project managers and the organizations. So I presume it becomes quite clear now with this example how the chain of your project logic can look like. To implement these activities, yeah, for sure, we need resources, financial resources, we need personal resources, personnel with a certain expertise also, etc. So these are just some examples for each level. For sure, if you think about the whole project, you will have more activities, more outputs, probably also more outcomes. It is good to focus on not too many impact goals because, yeah, then your project would have to become bigger and bigger that you can even have the possibility to contribute it. So the upper levels, keep them precise, concise, but somehow not too much. So, as I said before, this method, and now probably you understand it better, is a tool to support not only the designing, but also the planning, but then also the monitoring and the evaluating of your project. How that works with the evaluation, then we will see also on Monday. But not only, it also promotes learning processes in your project team or in your organization, because when you think about such chains of logic, you have to reflect on your framework, and this is the third point here. You have to think about your own objectives, and you can use this method, this approach during your whole project. You can always refer to it. You can even change it. You have probably to adapt it during the process. So it is a good tool to support your implementation also then. Yeah, so we can even say that. So if we want to measure now our results, we need this little thing called indicator. Because how can we measure outcomes? It's not easy, for example, or even outputs. Yeah, we need another key figure, another step for that, and here we have to define indicators. And we can do that on all levels of our project logic, in all five levels, you can say. But I would suggest you stick especially to the output and perhaps to the outcome also, because these are there where you will need it and where you can measure it. As I said, impact is difficult. Activities is quite easy because you see if you have done what you set up as an activity plan. Here it's also good always to, if you think about indicators, always good to care about the different target groups you possibly have, and also to care about defined and already existing thresholds, which you have to care about in your project. For example, certain funding programs tell you what you shall achieve. So for that, then you have to take into account these prerequisites and to define your indicators along them. What is an indicator? An indicator is a measurable variable. For example, if you have a training, you can measure the number of participants. And you can set an indicator like 10 participants in a training. This is my indicator then for success. We'll come to that later. Or acquired knowledge of a participant. I say, I want to reach that the people know this and that. Or have the skills improved, and these and that skills improved. But also, if we think about this other part of our project logic, the cooperation, the new networks, and so on, then the number of new partnerships could be an indicator. Or even the thematic fields of new cooperation projects you want to tackle. So let's say we want to especially create new cooperation projects in the field of education for sustainable environments. That could be also an indicator. And as you see already here, there are different kinds of indicators, quantitative and qualitative ones. So you have to be aware of that fact, but it's not so difficult to understand. Everything what you can count is a quantitative one, and for example, if you think about the thematic fields you want to include, then this is a qualitative indicator. Now it becomes very clear with this Mona Lisa example, which is often used in this context. Quantitative data and qualitative data as a reference here. Quantitative is the size, the weight, and so on. The qualitative data is the description of what you can see, of what you can smell, or how it looks like, and so on. There's one small thing I would like to add concerning indicators. We can talk about indicators of success also. So indicators of success means that they are connected to the successful implementation of your project or program. So these are very much to define in this phase, so that you can assess them during the whole process. And they refer very much to the objectives you set and the milestones also you have. And as I said before, it's also then used for the project evaluation, because you can then say, okay, we wanted to reach 10%, or let's say 10 persons for this training. Did we do that? Yes or no? It's easy to say then if it was successful or not. We wanted to include these and that thematic fields in new cooperations. Could we do that? Could we include the field of education for sustainable environments? Yes or no? It's then very easy to also see your results. Okay. I have just one more example. As I said before, here we had the new networks we wanted to create as an output. An indicator could be the number of new cooperation projects. We can easily count that. Quantitative indicator. The other output we wanted to reach is the raised knowledge and the improved skills of participants in trainings. The indicator here could be that the project managers know about EU funding programs and how to apply. So that is an indicator we set up before. We want to teach people in this field. Did we do that or not? Do they know it or not? How to get to know that? That is what will you hear at Monday in the evaluation and monitoring part. Okay, so we would come to the second part of our session here. What could influence the project? Before we talked about project logic and objectives and so on, and here you can probably better think about it, brainstorm about possible goals and aims you have. You know that from national projects as well. You want to reach something by doing something that's clear. So you can think about, and you can probably find good ideas. When it comes to influences, it's a bit more difficult, especially if you did not work in an international environment yet. So how shall you know what could influence an international project? Probably there are other possible risks and so on. So that becomes a bit more difficult for first-time realizers. Nevertheless, it is important to also put some thoughts on this into the design phase. Perhaps also do some research if you don't have the knowledge or the experience. A very common tool, and probably know that already, but I will tell again because this has some connections also to the international part. I will tell you is the SWOT analysis. It's really probably the most common used tool for strategic planning. It's not a tool you would really use then in the project implementation, but it's really for the planning part, for the designing part, and it's categorized in 4 parts: strength and weaknesses, as well as opportunities and threats. It's important to understand that the strength and weaknesses refer to internal issues, opportunities and threats more to external ones. And here, the external part includes all these international contexts. So that's what could be then a bit difficult for you to think about or to define. We will go into details here. So the positive part is strength and opportunities, and often they are forgotten. And normally you think, okay, what could happen, what could influence my project negatively? But it's very important also to think about what could influence my project positively. You will need that probably. Yeah? So strength refer to the parts of what you are good at in your project team, in your organization, or in your partnership. What are your internal qualities? What resources and advantages do you have? So this is very much connected to issues, aspects you can probably easier define because it's internal. You can find out about that. Opportunities refer to the external aspect. So what characteristics, trends and changes in the environment can have a positive effect. And here, what perhaps contexts in other countries could positively affect my project. And for that, as I said at the beginning, it is really important to include the partners in the international project already in this phase, because they probably know much better about their context in their countries, what opportunities could be there. Perhaps in one country it's much easier to get a funding in this or that program, so why not then apply in this country? But you cannot know it if you do not talk about it with the partners, and this is the opportunity to know about opportunities for your project. The negative or risky parts, we can say, the weaknesses and threats. Weaknesses, again, refer to the internal aspect, so the internal characteristics which could reduce the performance of your organization, of your team, of the partnership. And here you should ask the question, okay, what internal parts would we need to improve? And which resources are possibly missing? Again, this is a bit easier to define for yourself, but also if you talk about a partnership, then for sure you have to include the partners, again, the partner organizations, to find out what is perhaps missing, which expertise is perhaps missing. Do we need another partner for this certain expertise, for example? The threats, referring to the external aspects, they define the factors beyond your control, which can have negative effects. Trends and changes which could threaten the project. Here again, if we are an international project, we have to take into account the context and situations in other countries which are participating in the project. And yeah, I have to repeat it. For that, you need your partners. Okay, so we come to the second part of the second chapter, the risks. The risks is something which need a bit more of our attention. And the threats we have here, you can see, they are very much connected to the risks. This is quite the same, you can say. But in general, risks are defined as events of uncertain occurrence and not necessarily negative. Yeah, this is so in the definition of the term itself. A risk can also be or have a positive effect, but normally we understand it as negative events. And also, when we talk now about risk management and analysis, for sure we see the negative part of it. And we also have to be clear about the fact that risks are always existing. I don't know any project without any risk. So we have to be aware of the fact that there are risks. But when we know that, we can perhaps tackle them. We can see how we can deal with them. And that's what this part is about. This is what you have to think about in this phase already, and not in the implementation phase when they are already occurring. Then it could be a bit more difficult to deal with them. So how to deal with them? That is done by the risk management, and the risk management is implemented already in this phase, but as I said, then also in the implementation phase. So it's a procedure not only done here in the design phase, but for the design phase we need the first part of the risk management, the risk analysis. The first step here would be to identify possible threats, and therefore we can very well use the SWOT analysis we have done. There we have already our weaknesses. We can think about what risks are connected to them perhaps, but also and especially the threats. So it could be useful to connect the risk analysis with the SWOT analysis. In the second step, you have to check, okay, what is vulnerable in my project? If a risk occurs, how would it affect my project? In which way? And then we can determine the risk. So, and that means we correlate the probability or the likelihood of the occurrence of this risk as well with the consequences. What happens if the risk occurs? So these two factors we need to take into account if we talk about risks. It's not only about, okay, there's this risk and then that would happen, but it's also about the probability of the risk occurrence. There are two more steps in the risk management. So you have find ways to reduce those risks possibly, and also prioritize your risk reduction measures. But this is something you then have to do in the implementation phase when a risk occurs. But yeah, you can already, and I will come to that later, also here define possible ways to reduce risks. It's also good to think about it in this phase already. For this correlation, it is good to use the risk matrix, we call it. I show it here. You can see on the x-axis, you can see the consequences and the grade of consequences a risk would have. And on the y-axis, you can see the likelihood or the probability of the occurrence of a risk. And it's called here residual risk. That means you can already reduce the risks in this phase that you say, okay, we do it in this way and that way. So that means that's the risk which is still left after you took measures. This is open source picture you can see here. So, for example, if we have a risk which is possible that it occurs, then we are in the third row. If this risk occurs, it would have a moderate consequence on the project. So that means, what do we have if the risk occurs? We have an issue. So that means could produce some problems for your project. That means you have to deal with this risk even before, even in this design phase. If you think about risks, which will be then set here in this unacceptable part. So, for example, if there is a threat which is almost certain then it occurs and it would have major consequences, then you're here in the fourth field of the first row. It's unacceptable. Then you have to think about what you can do. Either you can reduce the risk by changing some project parts or so on, or you even cannot do the project. I mean, that's really serious then. So you have to think about it. The difficult part is to define the likelihood and define the consequences of a certain threat. Yeah. Therefore, you need some experience, and that's what I said before. If you never worked in an international environment, it could be difficult to define what consequences could that have. For sure, you can use your experience from national contexts, but perhaps it does not work with all the threats which could occur. So therefore, I would suggest to try to get some feedback from a more experienced project manager in the international environment. Or even here you can talk with your partners, because that is the good part in international cooperation. Perhaps there are some partners they didn't do an international cooperation the first time, so they know about possible risks. They know about the probability of the occurrence or the consequences. To give an example, we could have the threat that a partner organization drops out. So this is something which sometimes happens in an international cooperation. Then you can say, okay, the likelihood of this event is perhaps unlikely. It could be depends also on the partnership consortium. So if, for example, if you have a partnership with 3 partners and one drops out, then the consequences probably would be major or even more. If there is a partnership a consortium with 10 partner organizations, could be that the consequences are not that high. So that depends then also on which partner is dropping out, and so on. In this example, we have an unlikely and likelihood and a major consequence. That means here we are in this field, 4 of the second row, supplementary issue. So it's okay, we can live with it, but perhaps we can think about what we can do. And here, step 4 and 5 are defined already in this risk analysis matrix then. So what can we do to prevent the occurrence of this threat? We could do that by having intensive discussions about the situation and motivation of each partner at the beginning of the project. That means already in the planning or designing phase. So find out about the needs of the partners. What would they like to achieve? What are their expertise and their experiences? How to involve them best in the whole process of the partnership, the project. An open communication should take place. Also is kind of prevention of that fact. And for sure also a regular monitoring, because if there are some issues, it's good to know about them early enough that you can react. So that refers to the monitoring part. Nevertheless, you can prevent very much, and at the end it could still happen because there are some internal things you cannot influence, and the partner organization drops out. The reaction could be then that you redistribute the tasks to the remaining partners, or to involve a new partner. These are the 2 issues, the 2 possibilities as reaction. For sure, there is the third possibility that you just go on without this partner and without fulfilling the tasks, but then that could be a problem for your project if the tasks are connected to other tasks, and or the funding organization, the funding body, the funding program would say no, this task has to be fulfilled. So probably it's good to react in these 2 ways mentioned here. For sure, we can think about more possible risks. Just give you some examples. The cancellation of participants for an activity. If there are just some, then the consequences, the likelihood of the event would be probably high, because always somebody is dropping out. The consequences would be not so high. So that means we probably are very much in this part of acceptable But if many participants do not take part or cancel for an event, then the consequences could be moderate, major. The likelihood of this event is lower than. So you can see we are perhaps then again in the supplementary issue section, or if we say no, all participants canceling, that is quite rare happening, so we would be still in an acceptable risk. So we don't have to take any measures at this point. Other risks could be, I don't know. Other risks could be that there's a failure to comply with the timetable, or there are unmotivated participants there, or as we know, there's an outbreak of a global pandemic. So if that happens, the consequence can even be catastrophic, even if the likelihood is rare. So we would be already in this part issue in this row and in this field. We all experienced that probably now in these times. So even it's not very likely that that happens, but if it happens, it is an issue. And in the future, probably we have to think about the risks here and the possible reactions. And we will do that, especially in international corporations. This is an issue because we cannot meet, we cannot travel, we cannot do the activities as planned, and we have to find possibilities to react on that, as we're doing it now online. But yeah, as we all know, that cannot make good all. Okay, so at this part, I would like to start. At this point, I would like to start the question and answers. For that, I opened the question section. So that means you can put if you write something in the chat, you can choose now to raise a question. Then you click this little button of a question mark, and then you will be here shown for all on the big screen. So, are there any questions? I see they're writing. There are some writing something. I see some people writing, so I still wait for your questions. Yeah. Okay, so. Okay. There is one question now. I have to see. Yeah, now probably all can see it. Can we say the wall between the unacceptable and the issue kind of risk is the end of the project? Yeah, I mean we are here in the design phase, so I would not say that it's the end of the project. you just have to think about how to lower either the probability of the threat or the consequence of the threat. So, for example, if we stay with this example of the pandemic, the risk is rare. The probability, the likelihood is rare. But the consequence, if you do not think about anything in before, could be catastrophic. So we have an issue. Let's say, let's say that's. I don't know if I can go back to the matrix. 1 second. No, I cannot. Okay, doesn't matter. I cannot without closing the question mode, so I will just tell you. In this case, you could lower the consequences because you can define in your design, project design, you can define already if a pandemic occurs, we will do our training online. So the consequence of this pandemic on this certain part of your project would be not catastrophic anymore. It could be major because you have to change the way of how you do it, probably even the contents. Yeah. That is a possibility already in the design phase, that you think about how do I have to adapt my project that we do not have unacceptable kind of risks. If you don't see any possibility to reduce the either the consequences or the likelihood part, then yeah, it could be that you can say, no, this project in this way we cannot do it because it's quite likely that this risk occurs, that this threat will be an issue then, an acceptable issue in fact. The consequences would be so high, we probably have to close our organization because of financial issues and so on. So at the end, this is always a personal thing. How do you really define then the consequences, for example, or do you want to carry that risk? And if the organizational leader says, no, okay, I know that's very risky, but we can achieve so much with that, I want to still want to do it. But yeah, it could have a fatal consequence. Okay, we have another question. The impact of the project is like the aim goals of the project. They can be considered the same thing. Okay. Yes, in general we can say impact are aims goals. But we have also different level of aims, you can say. So we have overall aims and objectives, and we have more detailed sub-aims, objectives, goals. And this quite refers to impact and outcome, I would say. And the question is also good because how you define an impact is really quite like you define an objective. And also the outcome. The difference is that you formulate it as if it has happened already. So you say the impact we want to have is an improved quality of work, and not we want to improve the work. The goal would be formulated as we want to improve the quality of work. The impact would be the quality of work is improved. It's as the objective is reached already. That's how you formulate it. But yes, could be the overall objectives here, and the outcomes are more than the sub goals you probably have. Is that understandable? Okay. Yep. I'm just looking if I have other questions. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it for the moment. Let me also say again, this designing part, and probably all parts of this project, international project management, very much include general project management questions, tools, issues, for sure. I try to give always some connections to this international part here because here it's especially in the second part of this session now it was quite what you have also for normal project management. I hope that you could see the connections to the international context. As Luca said before, we have also a work assignment for the afternoon, depending on how you want to work on it. If you want to do it individually, you do not have to be there in the afternoon, but therefore it's good that you know about it already now. So I take some minutes to explain it to you. And for the others who want to work in a group or so, they will be there in the afternoon, and we can explain it again. Or if there are any questions, you can anyhow participate. I like to be in Zoom. Then it's a pity that I cannot ask you questions now and more about how you see it and perhaps what you experienced already. But okay, it's like it is. So the assignment would be, and Luca told you already, to do a Gantt chart. I would like to add also to define indicators of success. So because when you do the Gantt chart, you have to define milestones and activities. So you could also think about indicators of success for certain activities. So that would be the additional assignment from my part. This is now not so easy to do just out of nothing. So there are two possibilities. One possibility is that you use a preset scenario we have prepared. I will share that with you, or you for sure can use your own scenario. If you already have a plan for a project, or you want to just use a project you've done already, then you can for sure also do it on with your own scenario. Yeah. The scenario we've created is a project example, and I would try to send it to you. Okay, Lorenzo is saying something perhaps on this issue. I wait a second, then, not to tell you something wrong. Okay, no, fine. So so we try to send you the scenario you can use if you want, but as said, you don't have to use it. Okay. Also, you get the PDFs of the presentations, so you can also look back into that. And for sure, if there are any more questions on the first or the second part of today morning, you can also ask these questions in the afternoon. We are there. Okay, fine. I think that's it for now. Okay, there's some more people writing. Thank you for attention for this morning session on design. See you in the afternoon, or see you see me again at Monday for the evaluation and monitoring part. Have a good day and a good week.